morning, Bill.
Could it work? Hello?
Yes, good morning, Bill.
Good morning. How you doing, man?
Pretty good, pretty good. Pretty groggy this morning, but I don't know
A little
why.
what?
A little groggy.
Just wiped?
I guess. I don't know.
I like that shirt, man.
Thank you. I've been strength training this week again, so I think that's part of it. There's just something about when you haven't worked muscle. Because I've only been really walking and.
Hold on a second. Hold on. I said, nice shirt, man. You said, thank you. I've been weightlifting this week. And I'm like, what the hell does weightlifting have to do with the fact I like this shirt?
No.
I was so confused. Yeah. I was like, you're like that dude in the Progressive commercials. He's like, feel my arms. I've been spinning faster, right? It's been like 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got up and I flexed real hard in front of the mirror. I think I'm bigger.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, am I cocked?
No, that's the Progressive commercial. He's with the sign, remember?
Oh, yeah, sorry, dude. I'm not all here yet. I guess. Like, I need some of what's in that cup right now. I think is what the deal is.
I'm working on it.
Man, how was yesterday for you, Bill?
It was a Thursday.
Good morning, Michelle. Happy Friday.
Hey, Michelle. Yeah, it was a Thursday. I had an afternoon, man. I don't know what happened to me yesterday afternoon. I just kind of spun off the rails.
Dude, so hard.
I mean, really, seriously. I was looking at my planner yesterday and I was like, oh crap, I didn't do like any of the things I said I was going to do afternoon.
Yeah.
So,
I know exactly why mine didn't happen, but
maybe it's mine too. Tell me why yours didn't happen.
A Facebook argument.
Oh, that was mine.
I didn't think that this would cause such the rabble, but I posted some article about how people in Portland are being told that they can't go back to protests if they get arrested at a protest. Which seems a little murky, incredibly unclear.
Yeah.
And then some people aren't being told that they can't come back. They're just being told that they now have a curfew, and stuff like this. And it's like, I have a big problem with that. Not because, you're trying to keep, people from like looting. Like I'm totally fine with the steps you have to do that. The thing that bothers me is like how murky all of this is, right? So, let's say that you're out someplace, right? And the protest blows up and then you get a ticket and you get to sign this thing and then you're hanging out with like a group of like 7 friends. Does that count as a protest in some people's eyes? Maybe. Could it be abused? Absolutely. Do we need a little bit more clarity? Probably. Yeah. So this is what I was trying to say. And then everyone was like all over me about it, but whatever. What else is new?
Mess, man. Did you see the thing about how the city is fining the feds $500 every 15 minutes that the fence is up around their courthouse?
Wait, the city is fining the feds?
Yeah.
No, I have not heard of this.
We're talking about crazy backwards ass like stuff going on. Like that is a mess right now. They're a dumpster fire right now.
I mean, I don't know, man. It's so bizarre, right? To talk to some of the people that I'm connected to, because like I posted this thing and I'm like, hey, I hope all you guys who were as concerned about the Second Amendment are as concerned about the First Amendment,
right?
Yeah. Because there's a bunch of people who get up in arms about the come and take it stuff because like you need weapons to protect against the government, and it's like the government is now like telling people that they can't assemble or so
I think reason it's the First Amendment.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, you can't run around town saying that like the Second Amendment is precious because it's a constitutional thing and the framers knew and all their clarity about like what was going to be happening, and then be like, no big deal. No big deal about the First Amendment. That just means you're a gun nut, which, you're allowed to be, but like be clear about what you are.
Because the First Amendment.
Exactly.
That's why you can be a gun nut.
But yeah, like one of my buddies was like calling me out. He was like, it's hypocritical for you to want to invoke the first to get people to invoke the second. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying the whole thing needs to change. That guys 300 years ago couldn't conceive of what we're capable of doing now, and the whole thing needs to change. What I'm saying is that if you're running around saying that you're a fundamental constitutionalist and everything else, and all the rights are important, they're being stripped away from other people, but those same people don't usually care about other people's exposure to this stuff unless it happens to them. So that's right. I said it. Come at me if you want it. I'm here.
No, John needs to get some stuff done today.
I do. I got to get so much stuff done today. It's crazy. But it's these are all philosophies, right? And so this one guy I've known for forever, he was like pissed about it, and like we're going back and forth, and I'm like, guy, I'm not angry. Like I'm not mad at you, right? Like I feel like you're mad at me about this thing. We have a difference of opinion. Like right. The value sets and the morals that we're pulling these ideas from are radically different, right? You want what you want, and I don't know what that is, but like I want equal application of the law to everybody, and I want it to be unimpeachable. I don't want to ever see a report that says one thing and then a video from someone else showing blatantly something else. It should be held without scrutiny, and they should be unimpeachable, and that's not the way, right? And it's not happening now, and it's fascinating to me how some people are like, well, it's just a couple of cops, but every protester's a looter, It's like, well, I can't even talk about it. Yeah.
How much of this is the media's issue? Because would you agree that the media over-reports all the different angles that are fantastic and crazy from both sides?
Well, of course they do. Okay. Yeah, I mean,
on that, how much is it fueled by the media?
That's a really good question, man. I don't know, right? Like I didn't realize how bad it was in Portland until I started, or not bad, or I didn't really realize what all was going on in Portland until I saw some reports, and then I reached out to some people that I know there, and like it's pretty crazy, right? And we're down here in Texas, and it's crazy in an entirely different format, right? We just have people that think that wearing a mask is unconstitutional because they're only cared about themselves and their own. This is an inconvenience to me, so let me go find out why I don't have to do it. Like that's what Google has become. So, I don't really know. I mean, and we're also separated and locked down and stuff like this. I mean, the people who are taking this seriously. I don't. How much of it is a media issue versus like. I don't really know how to respond to that.
I feel like there's in most cases when you're talking about large swaths of populations, that there's sets of outliers that get most of the media attention, no matter what the story is. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. And so because that gets the attention, the people that aren't part of that group start thinking if they're on the other side, I mean, the easy ones, right? Republican, Democrats, right? If I'm a Republican, and I see a set of Democrats doing something, and that's what the media is reporting on, then I start to think, oh, well, that's what all Democrats are like.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right? Doesn't matter what we're talking about. So I feel like once you get around a divisive issue, like the stuff that we have going on, or the Constitution, or something like that, the media starts piling on these small groups into the media, and that's all they report. And so then all of a sudden, they've got all this decisiveness among all the big groups, not just the small groups, right? And that's what fuels the Facebook and what used to be Twitter fury is becoming Facebook fury, right? And that's what fuels it, because it's like to me, most people, let's say 60%, 65% of people just want everyone to be okay. Like I just want them to be able to do what they need to do. I'm not trying to impose my laws on you other than don't kill people and, like the main stuff. Then there's like,
okay, we'll talk about that in a second because I have some questions, but continue. Okay.
Well, that's pretty much the state. Like the core of society is not looking to impose their own stuff on you. They just don't want you to disrupt their own stuff.
I think I agree with that statement. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I think then you get fringe groups and media reports on that, and so then they try and pit everybody against each other. And
Well,
I think
sure. I mean,
media has a big role. At the end of the day, I think media has a big role in the degree of which we have come to this sort of stupid, divisive time in America.
I mean, you know, there's some big problems with the media, right? And about how they earn and all of that stuff, in my opinion. But on the other hand, it's really nice. I mean, dude, imagine 25 years ago, and the only paper you got was like your local paper, right? And you had to view it through their lens, right? And you might get something like the Wall Street Journal or like a national publication, but like you were just confined to like this, right? Like as a kid, like my parents watched, Channel 8 News, like local news and everything else like this. And it was just like, that's, at least now we have a choice, right? Of the outlets that we want to hear from and stuff like that. I mean, you got to take in all the bias and everything else like this. And hopefully you're checking all of that stuff. But it's like, like I'm going to go read CNN. I'm going to go read The Hill. And then I'm going to go read something a little more left, right? And then try to figure out like how I feel about it and how I think about it, independent of what they're telling me. But so I love the choice, right? I hate the 24-hour and the please look at me attention whoring, that they all do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I agree. I think that most people this is going to be a pretty divisive statement, but I think that more people on the right are more concerned about taking rights away from people than I think that people on the left are.
Yeah, I don't agree. I think people are people. I think that's a human nature. I think we all want our stuff not disrupted.
Well,
I think it's the tactics the right use definitely appear that way, but I think most people would tell you that I think it's just the strategies they use, right? So
I think about it.
Say, let's just, I'm obviously we don't go into like massive stuff like abortion, right? Take away your right as a woman to do this, this, and this. That's
exactly where I was going to go. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Whatever you believe about that, I can see how that looks much more divisive on that topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the left side, though, because I'm not Republican, I'm libertarian, right? I'm let's let everyone do their own thing.
There's obviously problems with that, right?
Oh, sure. I'm a theoretical libertarian. I know practically that's not. People don't take personal responsibility. I mean, take the masks, for example. Everyone should probably just be doing it because it's the kind thing to do to your neighbor, right?
Yes.
And no other reason. But the left side, I don't like because I'm libertarian, is that I also don't want the government to tell me what to do, much less the right, much less the left. Whereas the left is much more involved with, hey, I'd like to give, just by nature, the way the Democrat system's set up is that the government needs more money to do these things to help us all out, education, insurance, all different things, right? Sure. So you give more control and money to the government. Well, that's also taking away my rights. It's just not the same way that the right wants to, because now you're taking more of my tax money and you're spending it ways that I'm not voting for you to spend it. You've taken away my vote with my dollars, right? So I think it just depends on which strategy or which tactic or which camp you fall in.
Well, okay.
You want to take control and put your views on people because they're your views.
For sure, right? And I think that part of that makes sense. The thing that I was arguing, TikTok has better reporting than all major media corporations combined. Okay. So this guy that I was, in it with yesterday, he was like, I don't understand, because like, I'm not a big gun guy either, and so he's like, I don't understand how you can not like guns and you want to remove all cops. And I'm like, whoa, those are some huge logic leaps there. I've never said both of those things ever. And he goes, well, you're not a fan of like the Second Amendment. And I'm like, true. Like, I'm not like a gun enthusiast, but trying to take away all guns isn't going to work. So like, I think that they should be harder to own, but I'm not for taking everything away. But it's like, I can also comment on the system that I'm expecting to protect me, but also wanting it to change, right? I mean, that's totally okay. because, he's like, well, you guys want to shut it all down. And I'm like, no, man, like that's bullshit. Like that's just Fox News BS that you're being fed. Like the actual version of defunding that most people believe in is about reallocation of funds, not just completely just like shutting it down.
Yeah.
So
which is definitely called defunding because it's
well,
very
here's the deal. Like, yeah, they could be defunded by, probably a significant amount because the training should change and the scope of the work should change and what they need to be trained for should change and all of that stuff. So when you don't have to train for every situation on the possible planet because you're the first line of defense, you don't have to spend as much time training, which means you can have more people on the force, which means, so like all of this is like a domino effect starting from like how they're trained and what they're expected to do. So
right. It goes back to media once again. It should be called retrain cops, not defund cops, because
absolutely
whoever came up with that probably in some way did that to slap Republicans in the face, right? Just because they were which gets back to the whole divisive nature. What we're talking about is media feeds divisiveness because it sells.
So let me ask you this then, right? And then we can move off this topic because, we're not changing anybody's mind and this is not a political show anyway. No one cares really what we think about these two topics. I think there's plenty of room for us to reallocate and have more social programs and help and support for people who need it without having to change like the tax structure, right? Because I just don't think it's like that big of a deal. We could reallocate in here and there. And then also I would be totally okay with like that top end being taxed a little bit harder. And even if I was in that realm, guys, I would still be saying that same thing. So don't be like, well, only afterward. Right. But there's so much room, because here's the deal. You could tax the church. Like these guys are buying jets. You can't tax those guys. Are you serious? Like that's nonsense. Like the tax loopholes are so big that we can't do any of these things. So of course it's viewed as, well, we have to pay more taxes. We don't have to pay more taxes. Some people have to pay more taxes. It's not people like you or me or, the next, 17% above us, or whatever that is.
What's funny is I don't think you'd have to raise a penny of taxes. You could just reallocate what's there and do a better job. Like that, even that would be a huge improvement.
Or, you could just legalize weed nationally, tax it.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
Colorado's done something like $1 billion for education since legalizing marijuana in the state. Like, that's not nothing. Pretty significant dollar amount going back to education in schools, which is arguably where it's most needed. And, we couldn't replicate that on a national level, though. Heaven forbid.
Yeah, no.
So stupid.
Yeah.
Anyway.
People.
Let's talk about business, stuff we're actually supposed to be talking about.
Hey, you know what? It's our show. We can talk about whatever we want to talk about.
That's true.
That's what came up. That's what we're doing, right? That's what distracted you yesterday. And so now I distracted you.
Totally distracted me yesterday.
So that's how we're making it in, okay? There you go.
Yeah, totally distracted me yesterday. It took me way off the path. Like at one point, Melissa came in and she was like, "Are you still doing this?" And I'm like,
"Good for her."
And I did not respond as kindly as I could. I said, "I'm aware of what I'm doing," because it's like, I'm not one to leave the conversation just like left off, right? And I believe pretty firmly in the things that I believe, and I'm here to talk about it because I'm not one of these guys who's like, well, it's just my opinion and I don't equivocate on my opinions. I think that's a bullshit cop-out answer, right? So if you have opinions and you're not talking about them, shut up, right? Like, because challenge yourself and your thoughts and your beliefs, or just go like live in a hole and make it all about yourself. Like that's just kind of how I feel about it.
Well, those people that are not particularly confident in their opinions then, because if you can't discuss why you have an opinion, then to me, you don't really have a very good.
Oh, I would agree with that completely.
Argument. So it's probably a little bit of fear too.
Yeah. Well, and then, it's a mess, man, because like most people can't actually stick to like one debate topic, right? And you see these in these comments, right? And so they'll address one thing and they'll hop around and call in 17 other things. So it's just like, which point do you want me to burn down first? Because, we can if you want.
See, in homeschool right now, one of the subjects that we're doing is debate. It's fallacies and different things like that, logical loopholes and things like that. Yeah. So I'm deep, right, knee deep in this stuff right now. And so
I love all of it.
Well, and absolutely one of the biggest things is people defer to other points when they can't defend their first point.
Oh, absolutely. Like that's the thing.
Well, but what's funny is there's actually not as many people that do that as you think. It's actually that they don't have a robust enough argument for the first point, so they add on these other points so that they don't get caught in a loop or some sort of shadowlands. It has for us to do with I can't defend it. It's like, well, I'm out of argument, so I need to add things
for sure. Right. Well, so what happens, right, is you run out of your talking points, right? That unless you're really like focused on this, you're just getting from like whatever news talking heads that you're getting that from, right? And so then you run out of it. And then what happens is you get antagonized, because when someone shows up with more information than you do, it feels like they're calling you stupid, right? Is how this happens, right? So I challenge these people. I have lots of information, lots of data, because like that's the thing, right? These people that I'm talking to, one of the guys was like, peaceful protesters don't get arrested. So I'm not sure what you're referencing.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm like, I can show you videos, man, of people who were doing nothing wrong. They've been shot in the face. There's been journalists who've been shot in the eyes and stuff like this. So you can't tell me that it's a perfect system. And if it's not a perfect system, that's the thing I've got a problem with, right? The lens that we look at this thing through, I think, is so interesting, right? Because like, I talk to people and they're like, yeah, but it's not all cops, so it's not that big of a deal. Well, it's not all protesters. So of these two groups of people, who can cause more damage to a community? A group of looters or a group of cops? A group of cops can exponentially have way more impact on a community, especially if they're acting maliciously and, or are racist or have profiling tendencies or things like this, than a group of looters. And in my world, the way that I think about it is like, it's people's rights over anybody's property anyway. Cause like, this is nonsense, right? We did the same thing in the Boston Tea Party. And now we look at it as like, at this like cherished event. And now half of you people are like, just stay home and everything will get better. It doesn't get better. Like, that's why we're here. Sorry. I'm fired up now.
Yeah, you are.
Man, yeah. This is exactly what our country was built upon. Like we got fed up. We went and did this thing. The conversation side of it didn't work. So then we started like dumping tea, and then we go to revolution. And so these people are now out here because they're fed up and pissed off and not being heard. And the same side that is like all riled up about how proud they are about our country is just saying, stay home. Oh, nonsense. You should be able to protest however you want. It shouldn't be like riot geared cops. I mean, it's a shit show. Sorry. Brandon Sheets, man. I'm not sure if you're thinking the same way I am or not, but this is how I feel about it. Like, it should be unequivocal or unimpeachable. There should be no questions. There shouldn't be any lies. We shouldn't have these reports that we then see videos and it's blatantly different. It is complete nonsense that people in authority are applying laws based upon how they feel in the moment, right? Can't do it anymore. It bothers me. It's it's not just is what
I'll let anybody know, but Brandon's a friend of mine, that John and I have very different views on lots of different things, but we both agree on the fact that you should be able to have your opinion and do it respectfully and peacefully.
Absolutely.
And discuss it as much as we want and still be friends. Mm-hmm. So that's,
so the other really important thing I think to talk about here is like, not everybody knows that I was in the Army, right? I joined the Army in 2001 before 9/11. And so I've gone through boot camp and AIT, and I've done all the hurrah stuff and all the, let's call it what it is, brainwashing that they put you through to turn you into a capable fighting machine for our country. Well, the same mentality and the same training is being put forth into cops, right? The same exact attitude, right? Of all this stuff of, let's go get them, guys, and blood makes the green grass grow, drill sergeant, and all of this stuff that like I had to do. They're being taught the same way, and the application is not the same. Right. It's just not. So the training should be different. And it's just not. And then you're called upon to do way too much, so you're not prepared. So then what happens if you got this gun on your hip and this badge on your chest? And so people are just supposed to like listen to you. And then you get a little back talk and you get flustered, and all of a sudden this whole thing escalates and it's way outside of your hands.
Yeah, so I'll read you this whole thing because it's you can't read all of it. Basically, it said it takes all of us to make the world go around. I guess I'm on the streets here in Philly. He's military as well, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Seeing a different
Thanks for
side
that.
up here. Seeing a different side up here, most likely, it's all good. Yeah, I mean, Brandon, this is why we John and I are huge First Amendment supporters, and very, very much believe that you should be able to tell us what's going on in Philly and tell us how you feel about it, right?
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem in America right now is the shout down mentality of if you don't believe what I believe, then you're stupid and you should shut up.
Yeah, we can't even have a conversation about it anymore.
That is the biggest threat to American society, I believe.
I would agree with that. For having as much information as we have at our fingertips, we're pretty dumb.
Well, it's overload. It's overload.
Yeah, it's way too much information.
Yeah, and so actually, when you were saying earlier that you appreciate all the choices, I don't think about it. I really agree with that. I see where you're coming from. I think having one news outlet telling you what your news is dangerous. I get that, but I also don't think 1,000 is any more helpful because it's not vetted. We don't know what's true and what's not. It's a lot of opinion, right? It's not news being reported. That's the biggest problem with news outlets is they're all editorial now. They're not just reporting the news.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I think that's a huge problem, right? So whenever anybody sends me an article, right, I go before I even click the article. If I'm unfamiliar with the publication, right, I just go to mediafactcheckbias.com or whatever that thing is. If you Google it, you'll find it, and then I check that thing, right, to see where the slant is before I even open it up and take a look at it, right? Because if it's super left or super right, then what I'm doing is I'm just looking for the quotations and the numbers, right? And then I'll go confirm that in another article. If it's somewhat center, then I'll take it more wholesome and complete. But I'm still probably going to go research it from slightly different wording to try to get a different point of view on it. Because guys, the messaging we get is so flippin' consistent. You can be halfway down a path that you're not even realize that you're on to buying something, right? Or investing in something or doing something or making a change because something in your email or something in your newsfeed is just every couple of days, just kind of pulsing, right? Mm-hmm. And you just see it, and we're not we are so manipulated, right? By everybody, right? I buy marketing stuff. Jake buys marketing stuff, right? We buy these tools, right? And we're doing it in our businesses, but think about all the people who don't have the massive energy suck that is a business, right? If I had all this time and was just working on a job and didn't really care and everything, how much more riled up would I be? It would be a nightmare, right? Because I was that guy, right? When I was working at the bank and everything, I would get way more frustrated and irritated with some of this stuff. And now it's just most of my energy goes towards the business stuff. So it kind of keeps me out of trouble. And most of the time I don't get into Facebook arguments anymore, but and then there's some people who say, well, don't talk about politics or anything that could be divisive because what happens is you're killing your audience. It doesn't really bother me, right? If don't I want to say that? Yeah. If you think that how I feel about all of this other stuff has any impact on my ability to help you sell or make you better or improve any of the goals that you're working on, cool. You shouldn't work with me anyway. Totally fine with that, right? Because one doesn't influence the other. And if it does, it influences it in the best way possible, right? Because otherwise I could just be, cool, I don't want to coach you. Go figure it out on your own. Because that's what happens most of the time in sales, right? You just slapped on the shoulder and said to go get it. Well, that's why everybody hates sales. And that's why everyone has huge turnover problems. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there are causes that absolutely are worth speaking up about, right? And you can't pick up a flag and carry it for every cause on the planet, which I think is what I was trying to do before I had all this. I had too many things, but now the big things that I'm really concerned about is equality, right? It should be ironclad, right? I have gay people in my family, right? And so seeing how they have been treated and had to go through and stuff like this, it's particularly triggering to me. So, but yeah, equality, trans rights, and freedom of speech. You should be able to say anything you want to anybody without fear of being, shouted down or anything else like this. I think that those are my big ones, right? Oh, well, the other one is freedom of choice because, I think it's important that a bunch of guys don't try to tell the other half of the population what they should do with their body. But I understand the different opinion on it. I just don't share it. Like Jake is a guy who thinks that life begins at conception, right? I totally understand that point of view, and I wouldn't try to change anybody's mind on it. But when you impose laws that say that like other people don't have that, you're taking away that right. Whereas if you just leave that right there, it doesn't actually cause you any harm, right? So it's that stuff, right? If your agenda is taking away a choice from somebody else, then that to me is a problem. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep, agreed. And there's very few issues that bother me and get me riled up, like John can get riled up on Facebook. There's only a couple, so
it's not a trait I'm happy about. Like it's like I posted this the other day and you laughed at it. I could be a 1-person pod.
Oh my God. That was awesome. That was so good because it's so true, but also like it could be a thing. Like you could pay John and he could go in and wreck shop like in the best way possible.
Yeah. Devil's advocate for hire.
That's right.
But I will let you win. Right.
Okay.
Like I got into like this debate, and this person was like, how many times do you ask for the business? And it's just like, you should only have to ask like once. And she's like, we'll talk about a funnel. It's like, well, then be clearer. Right. And like I know what you're doing. You're coming in here to rile people up. So that way you can sell them funnels and everything else like this. And so you're not even having the conversation well, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, well, what do you do about this? Well, I do this and this and this. And what if that doesn't work? Well, I do this and this. So then afterwards, she sent me a friend request and I accepted it. And I was like, hey, I'm kind of curious for the friend request. And she was like, you had good conversation and I got to explain my entire process. So it worked. And I was like, people should pay me for this.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I love that.
So funny. Well, $1,000 a month, and I'll just argue with you, and that way you can explain to everybody why you're great, and the difference between the paid version and the free version is I'll let you win if you're wrong.
You'll back down.
Yes, exactly. Oh, okay, cool. I got to go back to work now, guys. I've got too much to do, but good chat.
Yeah. There's some good points, but still.
Yeah, but still, what about her emails?
Yeah.
Anyway, man, dude, today's going to suck for me. I've got so much to do.
No. See, what this means is now you've got all that out. You got to do your venting on air, no less.
That's true. So
now you don't need to do any more.
No more.
Buckle down, get back to it. Because otherwise, you could lose a bill bet. We could do that.
And I can't.
Yeah.
My commitment to consistency is so strong. I will work until midnight tonight to get everything done if I have to. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Lila over in my accountability group is so far behind on her monthly goal, and
really?
her stakes was that she won't go on LinkedIn the whole month of September if she doesn't finish. Yeah, and that's like air for her. Like that is insane. And she is crazy. So she's like, I'm literally going to work every hour between now and the end of July 30th because I cannot lose that bet. That's what hard so far is the stakes. She goes, without the stakes, I wouldn't do this. I'd just do the bet.
Yeah. The stakes are what make you go, guys.
They have to be real stakes.
And let me tell you something. Like this is super important, right? Because I did everything I needed to do yesterday, everything that was on the schedule, right? But the times that weren't scheduled, I was having conversations, right? Or arguing, really, is really what it was about. But I don't have time for that today. I've got to get all this other stuff done today. And you know what? I got everything done on my calendar yesterday. So put more stuff on your calendar to fill those gaps so that your productivity time is actually productive.
And then journal about it at night while you have to argue.
Yes. Journal. Argue with yourself.
Get that part out of you.
Because like, the worst thing I did yesterday was I had a big block of time between 2 and 6 that was just like open, right? And I'm like, cool, blocking and tackling time. Well, blocking and tackling time became Facebook argument time because I knew that I had today, right, to get all of this done, right? So the deadline hadn't really kicked in for me yet because you get used to stuff, guys. Like Thursday used to be my panic point of like, oh my God, I got to get on the ball and everything else like this. But like now that I know what I'm capable of doing in a day, it's like, I can wait until Friday.
Yeah.
right? Because you get used to this stuff and then you have to adjust it, right? Like eventually Jake and I are going to have daily deadlines. I have no doubt about it. And they're going to be,
they're already in my book.
They're going to be crazy.
I'm already doing it.
Daily deadlines. And that's going to be legit. We're going to get so much done.
Can I tell you what the last 8 days have looked like from a productivity standpoint?
No.
Bro. It's insane. I've got so much done in the last 8 days. Like I have moved freaking hills around my house. Like
small mountains,
if you will. We're too much.
Fair.
Yeah. So yes, but for real, dailies, and that's what actually. So I started bringing it up in my group, daily deadlines, just for myself. Just hey guys, this is what on for the day. Here's what I'm looking at. And a couple people have picked it up. They haven't like consistently, but I think that's the next level.
I think so, right? I mean, because you know you just get used to anything, right? You know, you start to get more done, and then it's like cool. Now, you know, you start to slack, right? Because you can get more done and stuff like this, right? Work expands to fill the time allotted, right? So if you give it lots of time, it is going to expand to fit that time. And let's be honest, you're not going to do any work for the majority of the 80%. You're going to get it all done in that last 20%. So shove a deadline on there, make it incredibly expensive so it hurts if you don't do it, and just go knock it out. Like,
yeah, and the next level of it, and this is actually something I'm looking in some of my consulting programming for my clients, is the quality of your choices for your deadlines.
Yeah,
it's what everyone starts with quantity. They just do.
Yes.
It's easier to measure, it's easier to knock down, it's easier to get successful at. So we're still kind of in that phase when it comes to the BIL show, when it comes just to measuring things like that, right? Our quantity is good, our deadlines are good, our stakes are good. We're even amping up to the daily deadline, right? At some point, right? So then it's okay, the quality of our choices, which is how we started the show today, right?
Yeah.
Quality of our choices is much or more difference.
Yeah.
Once you have that pattern, it's easier to make sure that you're getting the quality choices done once you have the habits.
Yeah. Because let's talk about the ownership part of this whole thing, right? Like me burning half of a day to argue with people about things that are not tied to my revenue is pretty common, right? I mean that's what most people are doing on social media, right? So here's what happens, right? You don't do your work, so then you're behind. So then your boss comes and says like, hey, why are you behind? And you're just like, man, my boss is a dick. No, you weren't doing what you were supposed to be doing. So
you're a squirrel.
Yeah. The best thing about working for myself is like I'm my own boss, right? But it's also the worst thing on the planet, right? Because like, man, I've got pretty high standards. I can be a bit hard to deal with. So like imagine all that head trash, like just like floating around in my head. You're not doing anything today. Why aren't you doing anything today? You know, and stuff like this. So I think it's easier to buy into the ownership side of all of the productivity thing when you're really doing your own thing, because before that there's these external factors that show up. You know, your spouse or significant other. Well, why didn't you do the dishes? Well, I made another choice. You know, nobody wants to hear that. Yeah. But like, you own your time and you own what you do with it. Like the other night I was reading the Obviously Awesome book on the couch, right? And like the TV was on and Melissa was like, aren't you gonna watch TV? And I was like, well, we're just watching The Office, which we've seen 100,000 times, and the book is good, and arguably I'm going to get more from the book than I am from the show, so I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. Like that as a choice right there in that moment to not do the easy thing, which is just veg out in front of the TV, but like at least have a book there in front of me. Mm-hmm. Like that's where it starts. You know, what can
that's where you start going. On the business side, a lot of times it's easier for people to see quality of choices because you're like, well, is this producing revenue for me, or is this helping service a client that I really want to make sure I keep long term, or is this, you know, like there's priorities, right? But when you get to the outside, you may go, what's the more important thing, to sit here and let my significant other see that I'm present, or to read a book because I think I can get more out of it, right? Nothing to do with your choice that time. It's just what was your priority that day, and what's your family priority, right? After 5, there is not because I don't want you to work, because I want you present here with me.
For sure. Yeah.
Or whatever that looks like. That's a quality choice versus a quantity choice too in your life.
Yeah. And it is really easy to feel under the weight of like everything you have to do and make the decision to prioritize the work over the family, right? And lots of people do that for short sprints. But what I will tell you is that if you're consistently in that mode of, I'm going to go home late because I've got a bunch of stuff to do because I didn't prioritize my time well, you're not prioritizing your family, and that's going to be a problem, right? I mean, you can communicate it and talk about it and set like good expectations if you have to sprint and stuff like this. But like if this is your all day, day in, day out like idea about it, you know, you might not always have it. So
yeah, I mean, actions speak louder than words, right? Your priorities speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
Where you're, I think it's, I forget the verse. Anyway, but there's a Bible verse that says your money shows your heart. I think it's not exactly how it goes, but right. But like whatever you spend your money on, and I would say time too, shows where your heart is. Like what you care about.
I agree with that.
So it's just a simple formula, right? Where you put your time, money, resources is the things that you care about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we need to probably talk about next week.
Probably, yeah, probably so.
Figure out what's going on there. Today, I'm talking to the Facebook ads guy. We're getting stuff launched today, so I'm excited about that. So I've got to kick off call with him. I've got to write my newsletter. I didn't do that yesterday, so that's a must do today. And then I've got my group. I did a little bit of reset on our postmortem for the month. Like the last part of our month is always the postmortem, looking back on our goals and let them know, the people that are there, that are going to stay. I'm going to be changing the theme. We're still going to be knocking down stuff together, still a 30-day thing, blah, blah, blah. But it's going to be more about helping you create a marketing message that gets you online.
Good.
So I did that reset yesterday with them, and so I'm going to be doing some content reset today, writing out that framework.
Okay.
That's my big 3 for today.
Wow. My big 3 for the day. So I've already written, I've scheduled a Sherpa to send out later on today. I need to write the one that's due this week, and I need to write the 2 chapters. But the CRM is mostly done. His training is mostly done and stuff like that. So I'm making some pretty good progress. You said something in there that I had a question about.
Facebook ads, newsletter, 30-day group, switching.
Nope. Never mind. It's gone. Don't worry about it. Yeah. What about next week?
So next week, I'm actually going to do some thinking about this weekend, because what I originally had, I don't think is necessarily going to push me towards my 12-week. That's kind of why I brought it up earlier this week, is because I was feeling like I was, what's it called? Drifting. I think I was drifting a little bit off my 12-week goal. So the idea is, right, I'm going to be making, by the end of the year, making the 10K from the groups and the training and the different offerings that I have. And the way that I had that was broken down by a certain number of offerings. The way that I get those offerings has changed a little bit, just through some of the stuff we're doing here and some of the stuff I do through Quirk now. I get some of that stuff through Quirk by referring, still get the same output, and it's just I have a team now with me. So I need to figure out what steps I need to be taking next week to better push me towards getting people signed up. Because the easy one to look at is the group, because I have 100% control over that. I can do the asks, I can do the upgrades. I've done everything I need to do other than get more people on it. I think I mentioned that too. I need to get more people through my funnel now. And so I've really, really been struggling hard. And tell me what you think about this. I've got that social selling book I haven't started yet. I borrowed from you. I want to spend less. Okay, here's the concept that's in my mind. I want to spend more time talking to potential customers and less time on social media. There are people who could be customers on social media. That's the trap, right? That's how we rationalize spending hours and days and weeks and months on social media through the years. Well, there's people that it could be mine. Okay, well, unless I'm using a very specific framework or tactic to get me to a conversation, to get them into my funnel, then technically I'm wasting time on social media. But if I'm using it for business purposes, so clearly you can network, you can do all sorts of things on social media, right? But like for this one slice of getting more people through my funnel, I need a specific strategy that I spend X amount of time on per week to get people into my funnels. That's the part I'm talking about.
So this is where the need for KPIs come into play, right? Because when I when I started working with a sales coach, the very first thing they always said was, you're not going to get any clients off of social media. So that is not something you do during work time. Right. And largely that community stayed with that same message until maybe about 2 years ago. Right. And now they're like, well, LinkedIn has some, utility, and videos have some utility, but they're a pretty big company, right? And they're going to move slow because they can, right? So this is where KPIs come into play, either from like a time perspective or some sort of output perspective, right? And ideally, it's a measure of both of those things, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think there's anything wrong with spending time on social media. Like it just has to be leading you to something, right? Just like anything else, right? You can go to lots of networking meetings and have lots of copies and not get any business out of it. That doesn't necessarily mean that networking is a time waster for you. You could just be doing it wrong.
Yes.
So there's, you can't really just say with like a broad brush, like networking doesn't work or social selling doesn't work, because it does, but it's just a black hole of time, just like anything else is, right? You can spend 17 hours trying to figure out how to do your weekly newsletter and go high level, right? And that becomes a time suck, right? It doesn't mean that it's like time spent badly. It's just, effort and time. So that's why the KPI becomes so important, right? You're supposed to be making 10 asks per day with the goal of getting probably 3 people, right? Because like the goal is 11 people per month, right? So 4 divided by 11, for the sake of easy math, is 3. So if you're not getting 3 people to join off of the 11 asks, the asks need to change, right? Either by volume or by like quality, right? Because the equation isn't working right now, right? So
or the offer doesn't match the people I'm asking.
True.
That's what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's super important as well. But with all of this stuff, it's figure out what you need to be getting out of it and make sure that you're getting that out of it, and then it's okay. But if you're not getting that out of it, then something else needs to adjust. It's a math problem, right? Exactly. If X plus 3 is 9, then X equals 6. Okay, right. Cool. X doesn't always equal 6, right? It depends upon the other numbers in the thing as well, right? Same thing when you're trying to figure out KPIs, right? Yeah. How many decision makers do you need to have conversations with to sell how much you need to sell on average, right? And then later on with your CRM and stuff like this, you can get really nuanced and you can tell exactly, right? I wish I could know exactly how productive my own social media is. It's a squirrel. What is it?
It's a squirrel.
Oh, dude, Brandon, it's a squirrel for everybody, right? Like I had this epiphany last night of like, I'm trying to treat Facebook like 2 things, this personal networking site, as well as this like area to like build an audience and share what I've learned and all of these things. So I have to make a decision essentially, right? And what behooves business John might not behoove personal John, and vice versa and stuff like this. But you got to tie it to a data point so that way you make sure that you're not lying to yourself, right? And that's with anything, right? You could write a blog a day, but if you're not getting X amount of traffic or X amount of promotion or X amount of something else like this, you could be wasting your time. So you need some other lens or some other data point to be looking at with anything that you're doing to figure out if you're actually being effective and productive or not. Because otherwise, anything is a black hole, like social media, email, text messages, your phone. There's so many of them. So, that's why we do these build bets. I've got 40 hours this week. Here's the stuff that I want to get done. I need to get it all done before the end of the week, or else I'm going to pay a cause that I don't want to, right? It's the same thing, just applied slightly differently with a monetary incentive that's really, really clear. Because
daily bets.
Huh?
Is it daily bets?
Daily bets, right? Because here's what happens, right? Let's say that you're operating at like 60% of your effectiveness because you're spending 40% of your time on social media, not producing leads, not posting, and just arguing. You did what I did yesterday, right? So after a month, that's a lot of time that you've burned, right? Yeah. And you don't really always realize it. Like one of my favorite sales books is this book called Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blunt, and he talks about this idea in there, and he words it the best way that I've ever heard about it. If you're having a slow month, it's not because of anything you did today. It's the stuff you didn't do 30, 60, or 90 days ago, depending upon how long your sales cycle is. If you're having a bad month now, it's not anything you did today or this week, right? It is a culmination.
Absolutely, always. How do you spell his name? Jeff Blum?
Jeb Blunt.
Oh, okay. Jeb Blunt.
Yeah, he's big on LinkedIn, but yeah, his book is solid. Really, really good book about prospecting, because you don't have to like it, but you do have to do it if you're until somebody else is doing it.
Oh yeah, pay someone to do it, right?
Yeah,
you do it or pay somebody.
Pay someone else to do it for sure.
Okay.
That's
what my next week's I'm trying to figure out is I want to figure out how to, and this is a recurring theme if you've been with us, that Jake doesn't like to prospect outwardly. I'm not the hunter type, but I either have to do it or pay someone to do it, right? So right now I have to do it.
Okay, so real quick, how many people did you get to join the group this month?
4.
Were you consistent in your 10 daily asks every day this month?
Largely, very almost every day. Yep.
Almost means
like there were certain days I only got 7 done, and I got sidetracked, and
okay.
But I made up for it. So I got all my asks.
Okay. So we now have a data point that says the goal is to get 11 people into this thing. We didn't hit that goal. So right. Next month we need to adjust, and adjusting means you're no longer doing 10. It might be 15.
Well, but see, that's where we go back to is that does the ask match the prospect? Because I'm always going to look there first. Because if the number of asks were there and we didn't hit the goal, it means something was wrong with the formula, and it's probably not the volume. It's you know what I mean?
I tend to go the other way, right? And let me explain why. Because I don't.
Well, it depends on your goal. Because I'd rather ask fewer people and get more yeses than to ask more people.
Well, no, I get that, but let's also think about the statement you made a minute ago. You don't like to prospect, right? But you have to do it now. So
but that's everywhere in my life, not just the stats. I want to do I want to do less work for more.
No, I'm totally with you, right?
Okay.
But your avoidance about being okay with asking more people to solve for the end number is going to send you down a black hole of trying to make this thing perfect.
Okay. So then on the opposite side of it, tell me how asking more people with the wrong offer is going to get me better data.
Well, because how do you know for sure that you have the wrong offer, right? Because variance is also a thing, right? I mean, we've got a month under our belt, right? So we have 30 days of about 10 asks per day. Okay. We got 4 numbers, right? And then, so it's not a complete loss. What's the common unifying factor in those 4 who said yes? Is there anything?
I don't know, and I don't know if I can get to that answer. That's part of the problem. I mean, how do you tell?
We go ask them. Super happy you're here. Would like to send you over a quick survey about just to make sure we're on the same page.
So what if I did that and there was no common? Because there's only 4 people. Let's say that was 4 different reasons.
I mean, in my opinion, if it's only 4 people, I'm just gonna ask them. Like, I'm not gonna go for.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, if I have all 4 people and they have 4 different reasons why they joined, there's no commonality. So then, how do I take that data? I mean, your answer is probably go get more data, right?
Yeah. Or think about it differently. Okay, what industry are they in? What niche are they in? What are they? Because there's commonalities there, right? We just have to look at it the right way. And this is really interesting because like in sales conversations, when you're trying to develop pain in your prospect or whatever, it's really easy to just want to inject your pain points. Hey, Jake, you probably really don't want to prospect anymore. You probably really don't want to sell, right? Well, that's not a pain point that I normally talk about with the people that I'm talking to, but it's a good one, right? The things that I'm talking about are, hey, look, you're scared about a loss of conversion if you let somebody else do this, right? Well, Jake doesn't care about his conversion rate, right? He just doesn't want to do it anymore. So there's a misalignment on my pain thing there. So I can run around saying like, oh man, people I talk to, they really don't want to do this anymore. So I don't know. When I hear you talk about like manipulating the offer, my concern is you're going to get lost down a black hole productivity wise, and the next week we get no asks. Does that make sense?
No, I get it. I definitely get where you're coming from. I'm just being devil's advocate because Yeah, because I think there's truth to both sides of that, right? Because you have to tweak your offer to make sure it's matching.
Of course, for sure.
You want to work with, right? But you can't, if you do that too much, you do end up going down the black hole of just tweaking your offer forever. And who's to say? I mean, I think there's danger in both, right? I could tweak my offer forever and not get the clients I want, or I could just pump up the volume and never get the amount of people I want because I'm not hitting the right people, right? So it's well, you look at both.
And I think that's the biggest, or one of the biggest fallacies about business today, right? Is you go figure out your niche, and there's all this stuff saying just talk to your market and don't worry about the other stuff. And then there's this whole other side of the thing of hey, look, your offer needs to be important to the market that you're serving and everything else like this, and so much about offering and positioning.
Right.
And if I was your supervisor, Jake, and you were like, hey, look, I don't think that the offer is good. I'd like to take a look at that. What I would say is, cool. You still have to do your 10 asks every day until you come up with a better plan.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Because what most people will do is they'll burn down this whole habit of the 10 asks per day to go work on the offer. And then that time stretches out because you probably don't have a deadline or anything really writing on it. And you don't really love to prospect anyway. So let's just make sure that this thing is really nice and tight and perfect, and everyone's going to take it.
Totally.
So that's the worry.
Yeah, for sure. You don't get to stop what you're doing just because you don't like the results.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Change
because the fact of the matter is, man, you could put together an ad, right? You have this ad call with this guy today. You're you could put together an ad and put this thing really on steroids, right? And then it's not asking 10 people a day; it's asking 1,000 people per day.
Right. Well, and that's always the best, because if you have money, then you can get the data a whole lot faster to see if
a whole lot faster.
Yeah, that's the beauty of paid.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Jake, why are you not doing it that way?
What do you mean?
Putting together an ad, using your resources to put an ad out there, and
Oh, I will be. It's just a budget question this month.
Okay, that's fair. Cool. So we might be talking about a KPI and adjustment that really doesn't matter because you're not going to need to ask anybody next month.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
I want everyone to notice how excited he got at the idea of not having to ask anybody to join this group.
There's no hiding there. I don't mind asking. I don't like going out and asking. I like asking and as it comes up in conversation. So I've always been told that I would probably be a really good inside salesperson, because the ask has already been made. You've already been put into a conversation. You're just helping someone who wants to be there get some more information, versus the outbound side is I need to go find someone who's interested in the conversation. And it's just a small nuance in personality and, comfort levels and things like that. But and see John shake and grin over there, who loves to go find people to talk to.
I don't love it. Here's the deal, guys. I hate prospecting. It's the thing that I hate the most, right? And on Sales Throwdown, we have a whole episode talking about how much I hate the prospect, because it's just completely a terrible use of time, right? I don't have problems talking to people. Huh?
I know it's good. I know it's there. It needs to be done. It just feels so inefficient to go ask 1,000 people to get 2 conversations,
Absolutely. Right.
That's so against my nature.
Horribly inefficient. Right. And I'm aware of that as well. So it's one of these things of, in my opinion, anybody can be a good inside sales rep. That's not like a badge. Yeah. So because it's the other thing, right? It's because, Jeff said the same to me once. He goes, hey, if you could cure cancer, would you have a problem going and telling everybody about it?
Yeah, but see, that's right. But that's the difference, is the scale in which you believe your offer, right? Because a lot of salespeople work for companies that they are not curing cancer.
True.
So that only works on certain conversations. That's why I hate that quote.
No, but here's the deal. If you don't believe that what you do or what you service or how you provide for your clients is the answer to the cancer in that industry, you shouldn't be doing that thing. Right?
Ideally.
So if you, and And if you're in sales, guys, and you're selling for something that like you don't love or you don't trust to go work, there are so many other sales jobs out there. Like stop complaining and go find something that you're passionate about or something that you really believe works, right? Like
Right.
don't necessarily sell something you're passionate about because it can ruin it. I've done that. But there's absolutely no reason to stay in a market or stay in an industry where you hate the product or you hate what you do or something else like this. Like there's always a sales job. Like
Yep.
If you want to make a job change, I can find you a sales slot. Like come talk to me.
Right.
You can be on the phones in like 2 weeks and you can be taking calls from home, making what you want and stuff like this. Like this is what I do. So, but I love what I do, right? Like I love it. I don't know that there's too many people who are better at it from like the culmination of what I do it about the tendencies and the habits and the behaviors and also the tech and building it out so that way you've got data on the important stuff. Like I don't really know that there's a whole lot of people that can do both of those things better than I can. And I think that everybody needs it, right? Because like I see how some of you people sell, and it's terrible. Like, I think I shared this yesterday, right? About being frustrated about this back and forth with this guy yesterday, and so because I was fired up, he pinged me again, right? He because I didn't respond to the last one, and so he responded with a, hey, just checking on this with like the two little up arrows to like his last text that I also didn't ask for, that was asking me for a time for my call. And so I was like, you know what, man? What is that?
Sorry,
just
the light.
Like,
yeah, those are the worst. Yes, give me more garbage in my inbox that I didn't ask for. That'll help.
Yeah. Well, no, I asked.
Buddy.
Hold on. This is important. I asked for something and I paid for it. I paid the $17 asking price. So this wasn't some freebie thing that I'm like raising my hand for or anything else like this. I made a purchase. Give me the thing that I bought and let me digest it and then see if you can help. But this guy wasn't doing any of these things. So I was like, look, man, if this is how you sell, you can take me off of every list that you have because this is complete garbage. And if the guy that you're working for is like, this is what he's teaching, then, I'm never buying anything again. If you'd like some feedback, I'd be happy to give it to you, but most people don't, so it's totally okay. Take me out of your pipeline. Yeah. And the guy was like, okay, we're listening. He said, we're. And I was like, cool. Please share this with the guy that you're working for, who's the guy that I bought this from. And all right, because he was making it about him and not about me whatsoever, right? We talked a little bit about this yesterday, and this is my value post today. So if you're not familiar with my value posts, check this out because it's going to be a clinic in how to do like good follow-up because this guy's wasn't. And so I called him out about it, and he was like, you know what, you're right. It's end of month, and I'm in a pure hustle, and I should have just booked the appointment for later. And I was like, cool. Like, hope this helps. See you later.
Wow, you don't often get people responding like that, so.
No, I mean, and then I was like, you know what? End of month is a pain in the ass, and I was like, sorry, man. Like I'm triggered and I'm worked up about some other stuff. I wasn't gonna respond to you at all, but you just caught me in a break, and sorry. Enjoy the rest of your month.
Yeah.
Because
good luck.
I don't want anybody to come back on me and be like, well, John, you're selling badly. Well, I don't really think I sell badly to make it about me and not about them, but whatever. So yeah. All
right. So why don't we do this? Because I have a 9 o'clock. I got to get prepped for. So why don't we talk about our goals on Monday?
Yeah. Mine's two more sections of this course. I need to get to 5 decision makers. I need to write Sherpa, and I need to do daily value posts. So mine's nothing crazy. I feel like I've been.
Are the 2 sections? The 2 new sections, that's really the build at? Because the rest is the stuff you just do every week, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I need to find somebody else who needs a closer because we're wrapping up with Levi and Scott. So get some time to do another one. So I need to find another one to do that with. And I'm also, next week I'm also vetting a couple of go high level consultants and teams. So that way, man, it's so deep. Like there's so much in there. It is
part of the problem.
It's ridiculous, And so, what I'm going to do is I'm looking for a group that we can build out like a nice fundamental kind of like snapshot that we can sell to whatever market we're going to, probably real estate, and then put them into my ticketing system and stuff like that. So that way, like, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Cool, man. Well, I gotta run.
All right, man. Thanks, Bill. Thanks for letting me vent, man.
Yeah, for sure. That's fun.
This is like an hour and 5 minutes of just like hearing John impersonate Lewis Black.
Be a little more rasp, dear boy.
Yeah. I can't even do that, actually. I can't even make it as raspy as you just did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know, Friday therapy, we'll just start calling it that.
Awesome, man. I got to get to work. I've got too much to do, and I'm not paying Nazis at the end of the day.
That's right. Me either.
All right, Bill.
Have a good weekend.